6 o'clock. I'm going to call to order the May 19th, 2025 Village of Belleville Board of Trustees.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Oh,
Yeah.
all right. President Service,
Here.
Trustees Bainan,
Here.
Bongard,
Here.
Eichelkraut, here, Hasmar,
Here.
Ward, here, Ziegler.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Hey. Affirmation of open meeting compliance.
The meeting was, the meeting was posted as required by law. That's if I'm gonna say that.
On baby.
Oh, you have no idea.
Public participation allows citizens to be heard on any agenda and non-agenda item. The public may also comment during the public participation section of each item. The village board shall make no decision or consideration of action of citizen comments for items not on the agenda, except to refer the matter to the village administrator for administrative consideration or to schedule the matter for board consideration at a later date. Have any public comment?
Just have the one.
Here we are, Memorial Day this weekend. And we'll just kindly like to remind everyone, flags should be flown at half mast to show our respect for those who have fallen. It would be nice if the cemetery was mowed and trimmed because the motorcycle groups come through and tour the cemeteries. That's it's also the opening of the hub on Main Street. And it would be really nice if the lower part by the dam was cleaned up because of the big picture windows in the back. When you look down Community Park, there's this mess. Grass, and there's a tree that they finally cut down that was dead, and they left everything lay there. And it just looks unkept. That's all I have.
Any public comments?
I have one hand raised online, but I don't know if that's intentional or accidental.
Someone online, virtual, that would like to speak?
They've lowered their hand, so we're good to go.
We're just here to see what the report on the planning commission meeting is from the other night. That's all.
Okay.
Other than that, there's nothing that people.
All right, next item then is a consent agenda. All items on the consent agenda are considered routine and will be enacted in one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a board member requests it, in which event the item will be removed from the consent agenda and considered the first item after the approval of the consent agenda. We have 3 items tonight. The village board meeting minutes from May 5th, special event permit for BACC movie night, and a special event for Culpeper Merriweather Circus. That should be exciting.
I will just mention that the minutes are the ones I emailed you guys that had the correct too many 5s. So but you don't need to worry about adding anything extra into a motion for that. Those are the ones we're approving tonight.
Can I make a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It passes. Village President's Report. Here's something I've never done. We have a proclamation to read. Senior Center.
Want me to, should have given you the copy of it.
Proclaim.
So, proclamation for Sugar River Senior Center Day by the Village of Belleville, Wisconsin. Whereas 50 years ago, an inspired program was established to serve and support the senior citizens of the Village of Belleville and the townships of Exeter and Montrose. And whereas the Sugar River Senior Center has been an asset to our community, providing essential programs and services that promote wellness, social connection, and lifelong learning for older adults. And whereas the contributions of seniors to the vibrancy and strength of our community are immeasurable, and their wisdom, experience, and volunteerism enrich the lives of residents of all ages. And whereas the Sugar River Senior Center, through its dedicated advisory council, celebrates both its 50th anniversary and the 10th anniversary of having its own building. And whereas programs for seniors play a vital role in strengthening our community by providing opportunities for engagement, reducing isolation, supporting health and wellness, and empowering older residents to lead fulfilling lives. Now, therefore, it be resolved that I, Mike Zervis, Village President of the Village of Belleville, do hereby proclaim June 18th, 2025 to be Sugar River Senior Center Day in the Village of Belleville, Wisconsin, to be a day of celebration for the legacy and ongoing impact of the Sugar River Senior Center. Be it further resolved that I encourage all residents to join in celebrating the invaluable contributions of our senior community and the continued success of the Sugar River Senior Center. Given under my hand the seal of the Village of Belleville, this 19th day of March, 2025.
That needs to be changed.
Oh, good.
March.
I will fix that. It is May.
May.
Sorry.
Just kidding.
I heard March.
Let people review this. Like 3. I'll get that fixed.
That could be worth it.
Apologies. Name chat GTP for
If you only could. Let's see. Village staff reports.
Nothing.
The mural should be started Wednesday. So I've talked to him, the wall has been primed. Let's just pray that the weather over the wall holds out for him.
Old business. We have discussed, consider resolution 2025-11, amending the adopted 2025 capital projects fund budget.
Just a resolution buttoning up if the capital spends that you discussed last meeting from the rec clubs.
Did you already approve this? This is just now the signature of it.
I'll move we approve resolution 2025-11.
Second.
Yes, Judy.
This is the club's money.
Well, some of it is reimbursing money that have already been spent by the clubs, but some of it was most of it is for capital purchases related to the various sports clubs that they haven't yet made. And I think the piece of equipment, attachment for a piece of equipment that we have to help keep up the fields.
What's the piece of equipment?
Aerator.
Okay.
Let's see here.
Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, next item, discuss and consider the offer to purchase commercial property in tax increment district number 3.
Yeah, so this is your approved offer to purchase based on our legal attorney, their legal attorney, going back and forth. based on the outlines that you guys authorized me to give, so, yeah, I think it's, what is it, 30 days?
It was 90, this brings it to 120.
It gives us enough time to do our surveys that we would need to do.
Oh, I'm sorry, I was thinking about this. Okay,
Everything.
yeah, that one.
Maybe this gives us. Yes. I believe it's 30 days of, any questions? I don't have the authority to. It's not
I
my.
had we discussed already the zoning with the agriculture
Yep.
type stuff, so that's not gonna be an issue, right? I think.
No, that's not. I was just curious. It's 12 lots, am I correct?
I will count again, but
It's
yes,
2.7 million, so they come out to be about $225,000 a lot, is that correct?
roughly.
Okay, and are they all valued at the same amount or?
No, there's various pricings.
Okay,
Please clarify to me why we're buying lots in Belleville. What are you gonna use it for?
Sure. So the expenditure period for the TID, has elapsed. So any projects that we didn't have by the expenditure date deadline, we can't undertake. So like projects like the walking trail and purchase of park land or anything else is fine because it was in the project plan. And we had the financing, or in the case of the Colt Drive Apartments, had already a contract done before the end of the expenditure date. But that expenditure date means that we can no longer entice any economic development using TIF funds. That's done. So if any of the project were to come looking for any kind of TIF to help make their project work, we wouldn't be able to do it. So the purchase of land allows us a different type of incentive to be able to try to incentivize economic development. So if we own the land, we can negotiate directly with the potential business. We can, go out, find businesses, work with Green County or Dane County or WIDA or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, to try to find businesses to come. It's platted as 12 lots or whatever now, but the plat is largely undeveloped in the center area. And so taking into account cumulatively the land that's there, could be, we might have something larger, like one large business come in that would take all of the lots in the center.
You mean center? Do you mean between the chiropractic office?
Yep, and north.
Going north to where,
Secor.
Secor and counterfeiters common space
Yeah.
is. So it's that whole section.
Yep, and there are some outlying lots around as well. Basically, the only two pieces of land that we would not be picking up in this is the land off of PD directly across from Quick Trip and the land directly next to Quick Trip. Those two lots are the ones that the seller wanted to keep. But all the rest of the land would be purchased under this.
In other words, it would be like a village industrial park.
It could be, yeah. I don't know if we'd go, I mean, it depends on the use, really, because right now it's business park. I don't think that you'd want to go like
No,
Anderson processing kind of industrial with all the homes being built right there, but yeah. something like that.
It's basically lots that we purchased with TIF money. I assume this
Yes,
is TIF
correct.
money. And it becomes the municipality then negotiates the price of the land with whomever.
Yep.
Like the business park, industrial park out in the, we're doing.
Yeah, I don't know all the ins and outs of that, but yeah, similar probably.
Okay. Because I'm sitting there going, what are we buying land for?
Yeah, because if we didn't have the land, really, we wouldn't have anything to offer as an incentive for any businesses when, interjurisdictional competition. Everybody's got a tip now. And so it's kind of important that we have the incentives to be able to try to spur develop.
It'd be just like we did with the industrial park when that was going out there. They'd bring a pro forma in, somebody would analyze it, and then, yeah, we'd go from there, so.
And it's 120 days as your closing, is your due diligence period. And then it is 12 months.
And then it is what?
12 months.
Because I didn't count him either.
I'll make a motion that we approve the offer to purchase.
Second.
Motion by Gary, second by Shelley for the purchase. As stated in the contract, correct?
Can we get a list of how much we're paying for each of the 12 lots?
So we didn't have it broken out by that. We paid it as a one sum, not a individual price.
So you didn't take the individual price that Francis and Fox wanted.
We have looked at them and then we looked, I think you looked at the prices that.
Yeah, I know. I got a pricing list from the realtor, and then we looked at it, and I looked at actually Broadway helped me find comps in the area for similarly developable land, and then we came up with an offer for the board to consider before we went over to them and discussed it with them. And it was built up. It was based off of the total acreage and down to the square foot.
It's not done by the lot.
Okay.
Any other discussion? I'd like to do a roll call.
Of course. Trustee Bannon.
Yeah.
Trustee Baumgart. Yes. Trustee Kraut.
Yes.
Trustee Kaczmarek.
Yes.
Trustee Ward. Yes. Trustee Ziegler.
Yes.
President Zervis.
Yes.
Passes on a 7-0.
Here, under new business. Let's consider water rate adjustment.
Okay, let's get them coming. So water and the sewer utility, two separate entities share a checking account. The water utility financially is doing well. We're at over 2 times our debt service ratio. The ratio of revenue to our debt service obligation that we have to be at a minimum, usually it's 1.2 to 120%. We're at 2.2 or 2.3, I think, as of the last audit. So perfectly healthy. We're able to cover our operating out of that utility, no problem as far as cash flow. We did qualify based on our audit through the PSC for a simplified rate case. This is something that every year they change their calculation to see whether or not, based on the PSC report and the annual audit for the community, you would qualify. So instead of going through a pretty complicated base rate case for the PSC, you can go through the simplified and go for like a 3% increase, just as kind of a maintenance. So the PSC has its own return on investment formula that it uses to say how much your utility should be taking into account, depreciation of assets and all that good stuff. Right now, based on their return on investment calculator, we would need a roughly 16% increase to match their base of what they believe our utility should. Now, right now, that doesn't matter.
And repeat that last sentence, please.
Starting.
With the rate, who was requesting a rate increase?
So Public Service Commission in Wisconsin regulates water utilities and telecommunications and power also, not sewer or stormwater. So we would have to go to them if we wanted to raise the rates, say for a new water tower. And that was going to be a couple $1 million. And we would need to raise the rates in order to have the capacity to take on the debt to do it. We would have to go to them and be like, hey, we need to raise our rates by 10% at minimum to be able to do this project. Well, the way the PSC works is you have to, if you're doing a simple rate, or if you're doing a regular rate case like that, and you petition for 10%, they're going to take the formula for their return on investment calculation, and they're, regardless of what you ask for, they're going to put you at what they believe you should be. So if we ask for 10% increase, but by their return on investment calculator, we should be at 16, we're not walking away with less than a 16% increase. That's why it's kind of important to be able to do maintenance increases through these simple rate cases. So usually if you qualify, you do it, that way you can keep up with it. If we don't do a 3% rate increase now through the simple rate case, next year we're looking at probably a 20% gap or thereabouts. And it will just continue to widen the longer we do not take advantage of the simplified rate cases. And so while it does not cause any harm to us to leave our rates the way they are now, it will in the future when we eventually go for a rate case. And I mean, the maintenance increases are going to be needed on a semi-regular basis anyway, just to keep up with, cost of living and whatever inflationary increases exist. But I would definitely recommend we take advantage of it when we're able to do the simple rate case, because it lets us keep up with that structural deficit that's created with their.
It helps with residents don't get a shock with, 16 or 20%.
Correct.
Something kind of smooths it out a little over time. No one likes to have rates increase, but
In reality, 3% is what, $1?
I think we're done here.
Something, yeah.
He's looking that, I'll let you know, finance personnel recommended both of these. So we discussed these last week, so.
It'd be $1.63.
Didn't you say that you should have been, we were getting more money in than what we're recommending, like almost double of what we're supposed to have at this point? When you first started?
The debt ratio coverage is just.
Yeah. So debt coverage ratio. So to satisfy the bondholders, the people that buy our debt,
Okay,
we have to have a certain cash flow that exceeds what we need just to pay our debt. And usually that's 120%.
we're at what?
220 or 230, something like that.
That's good.
It is. It's great. Like I said, on a cash flow basis, we have no issue in the water utility right now. We're simply looking at keeping the rates stable, let's say, as opposed to kind of what we've seen them in the past, where if you need a big project, you go and you have a huge rate increase and then you don't touch it for 10 years. And then you need another huge rate increase, because that's when you start to get whiplash.
You said 10 years. I mean, don't we review this every year?
Yeah, the whether or not we can go for a simple rate case is reviewed every year. The last time that there was an increase in water was 2018. So we're not that far off of the decade mark.
A pretty big increase too.
I think it was because we went for a full rate case at that time. I was able to find some of the paperwork before while I was doing this, but not the whole shebang. So I don't know exactly how big of a difference it was at that time, but I know that was for, I think it was for the well house. So that's where that was. And so, hopefully if you're able to keep up with the maintenance, yes, you'll still need the regular rate cases from time to time when big things pop up. But instead of, possibility of a 16 or 20% increase when we go for that rate case, now it's probably going to be much, much less. I mean, obviously the smaller we can make the gap between their math and our need, the better. So
if on an average, what would somebody's water bill go up if they got the 3%?
yeah, no. So based on the average residential water bill, it'd be $1.63 a month.
$1.53?
$1.63.
$1.63 a month. Okay.
Something.
Again, water is the cheaper of the two, so.
Oh, Evans, yes, but still, wow. I just paid my water bill. Makes me sick every time I do it.
So that's that portion of it.
Thank you for your explanation.
one motion on there with the resolution.
Right. And then there's also the sewer portion of it. And I don't know if you want to do these.
Try and do
together.
these together or?
That's a separate.
My bad. Separate. You guys do you separate.
I'll make a motion that we approve the resolution 2025-09.
I'll second that. I'll be watching my water bill for the $1.63.
Like you said, it's an average.
I know, but I have listed everything.
I just want to say, one more thing. So we can do it as early as mid-year this year, but we don't need to. But we do need to apply for the rate case, and the latest we'd be able to do would be January of 26, which is what I recommend.
Okay,
If that was my question.
so
Just fine.
do you need something added to that?
It's in the resolution. It's in the resolution.
It's there.
Okay, got it.
Tell you, so.
So chances are it will go in effect when?
January first.
January.
So, the bill you received late January next year.
Any other discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? It passes. Okay, now we'll talk to us about wastewater utility portion.
Okay, this is the worst conversation. So, last year, we completed the WQT project. We were able to secure funding. We paid down some previous debt that we had from the 2007 Clean Water Fund loan for the wastewater treatment plant so that we could take on this new debt to be able, that we use to construct or do improvements to the shorelines and everything on some farms. As a part of that project originally, before any of us got here, it was discussed that there would be 10% increases in rates needed. One before the project was to take, was to start, and one afterward to take care of continuing costs. Brian from Ellers remembers that MSA said that there would not be any continuing costs after the project at some point, and so the 10%, the second 10% increase was abandoned. The first one took effect in 2023. Second one was abandoned. A few things have happened since we finished WQT. We have 2 payments to individual landowners, paying them to keep their land the way we need it per that project and not plant certain things, or honestly, I don't know. But we pay them money so that they live up to their end of the bargain. And then we have continuing costs annually from our engineer to inspect the shoreline work that we did and the different landowners' land to make sure they're doing what they should be doing. That's one aspect of it. That's just a little less than $50,000 a year in continuing costs. Another issue we've had is inflation, has obviously been a big deal, and that's taken a bite out of everything, including the utility. And then the issues we've had operationally over the last year. Last year was a particularly bad year with equipment breakdowns and stuff like that, you know, bringing things to a different standard than they may have been prior to last year. And then also losing the staff that was able to take care of the reporting requirements, forced us to bring in MSA to do that for us, which isn't cheap. It's about $3,000 a month. That $3,000 a month was coming out of our salary line, but that, you know, there are no excess salaries to be taken now. So that's added up to about $54,000 over the course of the last year. And so all those things together, we would need a minimum rate increase of 10% to be able to just barely break even in the wastewater utility. And that's with doing some financial gymnastics this year to make sure that we stay under budget as much as possible.
So what was your recommendation? That 10%?
10%.
And that's what the.
Effective July 1st.
Just to give a perspective, we talked about the debt coverage ratio with water. Debt coverage ratio was just barely at the minimum required for sewer. We got it by $2,000. So that is razor thin, uncomfortably thin. So even with a rate increase as of July 1st this year of 10%, we would still be somewhere in the neighborhood of $29,000 current projections. And so that's still pretty thin margin. Next year would be fine, but yeah, it's like I said, some financial gymnastics to make sure that we stay under budget this year.
Refresh my memory as to why we are paying these landowners thousands of dollars again. That's the question number one.
Some of them transitioned some of their livestock grounds to removed all their livestock and leave the grass, so we pay them for that. Some of them let us do like shoreline erosion and like riprap and stuff like that. But mainly it's for the folks that we took their farm fields away from them and they just on grass.
So we're paying them technically to keep their livestock away from the stream, so it's not polluting it.
Pretty much.
And do not have a cat.
And
And
we're
not
paying, I
have a
think,
cash
about
crop in it.
5,000, don't quote me fully, but I think it's about 5,000 each. I think.
No.
How much are they getting,
So it's
Dave?
$60 a year, two different.
Well, aren't these by natural resources laws that they aren't supposed to pollute the stream in the first place? I mean, it seems like, why are we paying them?
If that law was followed, then we wouldn't have had to worry about the WQT in the first place, but it's not followed, so
Well, shouldn't there be some penalty for them that's not following
it's
it?
above our pay grade.
Well, I think that it's wrong that we're paying them to keep their cows away from polluting the stream.
Like I said, I don't know all the technicalities of the project. I know.
And second question, if the rate increases for the sewer goes up 10%, what is that for an average person per month?
Average utility bill would be impacted $10.62 a month.
$10 and how much?
62 cents a month for the average utility bill.
It's average.
I mean, our water bill isn't so bad. It's a sewer that's so ridiculous.
It is.
I mean, seriously, is there any other way to get around this a little bit? Like, what making some of the people pay for it that are causing the increase? Like,
They are, every new home, I think is about $3,000 for sewer connections.
every new home is what?
Sewer connection.
Sewer connections, $3,889 per new,
Thousand, how much?
$3,000 roughly.
$3,889.
Oh, 889, okay,
So that's per new connection.
for a new connect.
One time
What did it used to be?
It used to be $3,089 before we upped the fee schedule this past year.
So how much did we get this year in new connection fees?
So far, well, by the time I wrote this, we had $116,670 in new connection fees.
116,000 what?
$116,670.
In the memo that we got.
I didn't get that memo.
It was part
It
of
was cut off of mine, I'm sorry. Okay, what's the projection of new connection fees for next year?
I don't have a crystal ball. And so I like to be conservative with my estimates. My estimates for this year's budget that we'd have 10 new units. We obviously surpassed that at this point. We have about 30. So I'm really hesitant to bet on an exorbitant number of new units and have all of our budgets be based on that income in case the income doesn't happen. Maybe that comes with me being jaded, having worked through the housing crisis and everything, but I really don't like to do that. I'd like to be pleasantly surprised. And so, 10 would be, $38,890 would be what I put in. But I mean, realistically, I think we've been averaging about 40 to 50 homes a year. So.
So, last year's WQT payment for Windy, Dan and Charlotte are eligible for annual rental payment equal to $400 per acre for conversion of their 38.9 acres. So, they generate out of our phosphorus 98.4 pounds of phosphorus credits. And we pay them $15,560 a year. And we sometimes do it in installments.
Judy was first. Go ahead.
Their contracts are 10-year contracts.
I believe so.
So, and when was the last renewal for the,
We just finished construction last year. So the first payment was last year. So there's still 9 more years, including this one.
okay, so we got 9 years of their payments left before come up again for another round of tenure. If whoever's sitting on this board decides to do another 10 years with them, that 10-year period is done. And their contract isn't renewed. That's it, right?
No idea. Back to the crystal ball thing. It all depends. Like, I understand why the WKT project was undertaken. Like, I get it. Where we are now doesn't match where they were when they made that decision. Where we are now more looks like what happened in 2006, 2007, as far as development goes here. Like, it's very much like 40 to 50 houses a year, like need a new treatment plant. Everything was going great. Like, that's very much where we were from everything I could see anyway, very much where we were there. The WQT project was made during a time when we really didn't have any housing development going on. And so we weren't looking at the possibility of upgrading the plant because it was just built and it's still at half capacity. Well, I mean, we've got more housing developments now. If they all go through, we're going to be well over capacity. And so I understand why the decision was made. But, you know, now looking at the next 5-6 years, if things go swimmingly, the WQT project could be, you know, unnecessary.
The next question is this, because I happened to be here during the water quality training. I remember correctly, it was supposedly cheaper than upgrading our sewer.
By millions of dollars.
Millions. I was just gonna say to Gary, is that not true?
That is true.
Well, like I say, I get it.
Okay,
So this was cheap.
you guys are going to.
Yeah, we were looking $4 to $5 million to upgrade the plant versus $1 million. 4 or $1.5 million, whatever.
Right, to do the whole spiel.
Yeah.
Which as far as I was concerned, that whole thing was a cluster. But anyhow, because we ended up paying more than.
Okay.
But anyhow, getting back on track here with the sewer plant. The sewer plant will need upgrades. Anybody got any ideas what that's gonna cost us?
MSA is gonna be doing a study next year or 2027 to
Next year.
talk about those numbers, so.
So you had a question?
I was just gonna comment, and kind of go off the other two comments that were just made, is the discussion was that it was going to be cheaper to do these WQT instead of a new upgrade or new water tower or water system,
Your wastewater, yeah.
wastewater system. Sewer system.
So that makes everybody's sewer become higher by $10 a month.
Average.
What did you say, Judy?
That means the sewer bills go up by $10.62 from where they're at now.
Actually, double that because there was already a 10% increase attributable to the project in 23.
I know, it's 25, so 2 years later, they go up again.
Keep in mind though, this is so we have clean drinking water, everything, all of this with the erosion on farms to the water tower. It's everything in between. So we have
I get
water
that,
and
Shelley,
we have enough water for everyone
to use.
to use. I know it sounds awful to have it raised $10. In reality, I would rather have the $10 now than in 5 years have to replace everything and add a water tower. So it's a minor inconvenience right now, I think.
But it's also called planning
And that's what we're doing.
and maintaining what we have.
And that's what we are doing. Unfortunately, it will cost us $10 more a month. So I make a motion that we approve resolution 2025-10.
Second.
He's Shelley today. And seconded by Gary. Any other discussion?
I have one question. And this maybe is off record, but how many people are behind on their water bills now?
I don't know that.
Irrelevant.
Are there a lot or not so many or
I think there was
just a, I
roughly
wouldn't,
30 notices sent out.
I'm sorry, what?
There were roughly 30 notices sent out. I don't,
30 notices?
somewhere around there.
And how many
No?
water bills are sent out?
To double check. I would, if you want specific information, Maxine, I would reach out to Kit or Donna tomorrow because they just put out, they have a list and I haven't seen it recently, but I'm not comfortable being able to say that
No.
for sure right now.
That's not appropriate.
So,
Okay.
okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I oppose.
And passes on 5-2.
Okay, so next item under new business, item C, discuss and consider personnel handbook. Lateral transfers.
When I was appointed chief, one of the things was how do we attract and retain police officers and not lose them to Belleville? After doing some research, we would not be the only ones to start a lateral transfer program. Looking at the union contract, there's already language in the contract that gives a way to being able to start a lateral transfer program. With that said, through discussions between the village administrator, myself, and then with the police committee has recommended creating an appendix J to the village's personnel handbook that sets a criteria on what would qualify a candidate that's seeking to become a police officer for the village of Belleville that has prior full-time experience with another law enforcement agency or accumulation of years of experience, maybe with several different law enforcement agencies. And if that criteria is met, then placing them on the appropriate pay grade within the wage scale that's outlined in the collective bargaining agreement, as well as providing them a similar sick leave and paid time off leave that is commensurate to their confirmed years of service in law enforcement. So before you, in addition to the memo, you also have Appendix J that outlines all this stuff. What we're seeking from tonight is approval to make this adjustment since we are in the midst of a hiring process right now where we have a couple candidates that have prior law enforcement experience. We're wishing to make the transfer to Belleville if they're successful through the process.
So this is just for police officer, or is this for any position in the police department?
It would be anybody that's covered under the collective bargaining agreement. So the way the personnel manual reads, or I'm sorry, the collective bargaining agreement reads, is that the employer, the village basically, can place anybody on the wage scale that they deem appropriate, depending on the person's qualifications and background in law enforcement, more or less their skills, knowledge, and abilities. So even though it's segregated out from patrol officer to detective to sergeant, those are assignments. And so basically it doesn't, in the collective bargaining agreement, does not say specifically that it has to be specific to one pay grade. It could be any pay grade, just as long as the person meets the qualifications the village feels appropriate to put them at that pay grade. More or less, if you're looking at it, there's only $1 difference between patrol officer and detective, and I think there's another $1 difference between or $2 difference between patrol officer and sergeant.
And if I remember correctly, Chris, correct me if I'm wrong, but when they come in, even though they're going to have the higher pay, their seniority with the village is going to start out as day one.
So they would not bump somebody, for instance, that has 5 years of service with the village. When it would come to vacation, pick time, overtime, assignment or anything like that, the person that has that 5 years gets the first choice or first refusal for that. And that the new employee starts at ground zero. And that would also apply for the longevity incentive. That's in the collective bargaining agreement. The longevity incentive would be based off their years of service with the village only.
Do you need a motion to prove it or?
Yeah, so it can be incorporated into the village personnel manual.
I'll make a motion to approve the personal handbook updated to the PD lateral transfers, appendix J.
I'll second.
Did you want to say something?
So, how is this different than the standard interviewing process and negotiating where a potential new hire's, salary and benefits package is going to be? I've never worked in a union, so for myself, I have to negotiate these things when I sit down and talk with a potential employer. And, I make it a point to let them know I have, 25 years experience. And that is why I'm, part of my justification, along with, things I've done, specific projects and things of, that's why I'm justifying the wage I'm asking for, the amount of time off, and any other benefits that are potentially offered. So I guess I'm just not really sure how this is different, or is this locking us in to forcing us to give this lateral transfer to a new hire?
So what it basically does is if we do have somebody that comes to the table and says, listen, I have X amount of years, I have these qualifications, et cetera, but I want to come to the village of Belleville and, be a police officer. What can you do in consideration for that? There's language in the collective bargaining unit or agreement that is vague. So what this does is it sets a standard so that we're applying that standard equitably across the board so that the members that have already been here with some time, there's justification on why the village board did what it did under these standards, instead of just arbitrarily saying, okay, the moon's in the 7th house today, we'll go with that, Oh, sorry, Mercury's in retrograde, we're not doing anything, something like that. It just sets a standard. So everybody knows the playing ground.
If we hire somebody that we send to the academy, they're going to come in whatever the pay scale is in the collective bargaining agreement now. So this is only for.
If they
Yeah, but
transfer.
So my first question is, does this person have to be currently employed to qualify for the lateral transfer? Or if somebody's been out of police work for a couple of years, are we counting that as a lateral transfer too?
Number 4 in appendix J says, do not have a gap in full-time law enforcement officer employment greater than 2 years. So because you have 3 years before the state runs out. Yep. Plus law enforcement skills are perishable. If you're not using them on a regular basis, not applying to them, it can be basically a lost art, for a lack of a better term. So 2 years, you still can recall stuff. You can still do more of the complicated investigations based on your training and experience. So there's not that much of a knowledge-based loss.
I'm not sure if this will help or not, but what you explained and what Chief Hughes is explaining is the difference between private and public. So as a private sector, that's what you do when you go to apply for a job. But in the public sector and in unions, with basic union negotiations and things, whatever's in the union is where you start. Like when you come in, no matter how much experience you have, if you're coming in new to a department, that's where you start, at the bottom. And what will help get different and qualified police officers or employees is to have that lateral transfer so that they can still come in at a little bit higher pay rate because of their training and experience. And that way it's more uniform, like Chief Hughes said, it's not just a whim decision.
Biggest caveat to this whole thing is their budget. If our budget doesn't allow for a higher pay, then they're not getting it. So our budget is that deciding factor. Obviously, time on the job and all that kind of stuff is deciding factors, but your real deciding factor is where you're at with your budget, based on where the previous person was at. If you're going down, but still going higher than what a normal person would go, all right, then we're at, that's a different conversation. But if you're going way up versus where the last person was, then we have to have budget conversations. It's probably just not.
Or, so under A1, we talk about, if somebody comes in with 7 years, they're gonna start at the 5 years of service. Is there a maximum number, years of experience that we have, or?
Yeah, the collective bargaining agreement taps out at 10 years of service.
All right.
That's why we have union negotiations next year.
Yes.
Yeah. So there's things kind of a little bit off topic, but like Gary alluded to, if we're going to be sending somebody to the academy, I'd like to, and this is discussions the village administrators, have a different wage than the starting wage that is currently in the collective bargaining agreement, because they're going through the academy, they shouldn't get the same wage as a starting employee. So there's different things we got to look at with the collective bargaining going forward to address, but this is what we're dealt with right now under the collective bargaining agreement. And this is in discussions with the union president and discussion with the labor attorney, this is what was comfortable with as far as creating a more standardized application of that verbiage that's currently in the collective bargaining agreement.
So because this is an appendix to our personnel handbook, we won't have, and there's already language in the CBA, we won't need to do a memorandum of agreement or anything for the remainder of the CBA, right?
Nope, and you won't ever have to unless they change that language out.
Yes.
You already have this, like it's in there, this policy just kind of outlines it, and I'm gonna be very clear again. Your budget is going to determine how high your. Like what you're saying is, like every other employee is allowed to negotiate. And maybe it's not money, but it's time off. In the union, no, unless you have something built in, no, you're starting at 0. And so this does get you to where you're feeling. And again, the village board has no final say over the final pay. So you guys, the police committee, chief makes his recommendation, the police committee makes their recommendation, but the village board does have the power of the purse. So if you guys don't agree or want to weigh something, you do have that. The power still rests with you.
So, for the recent candidates that you've interviewed, are they specifically asking for this?
One did.
One did?
Yeah.
And, I understand what you mean by getting consistency, so we don't end up necessarily with people with the same tenure, essentially having wages that are very disparate from others. So.
And I'll be very honest, the reason I asked if this was just for officers or for sergeants or, if it included everybody. My feeling is if we're laterally transferring somebody in here, it should just be for the officer position, because I think before they become, again, personal opinion, before they become a sergeant or a detective, they need to get to know the village and how we operate here versus how they operated wherever they're coming from. But I'll cross that bridge if we get to that down the road. So.
Any other discussion? We had a motion on the table, correct?
Yeah, motion by Maxine, seconded by Tony to approve Appendix J. Forwards, but that's the.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes.
Thank you.
All right, moving on. Here. Discuss, consider approval on rezoning application for 109 South Park Street parcel number to be changed from I General Industrial to BG General Commercial District.
Basically, it. Plan Commission recommended approval. This is the depot, the yards project. So BG is consistent with our long-range land use plan. It's already identified as a property in our downtown design district. So, yay.
I see they took my house out of it. I make a motion to approve rezoning application for 109 South Park Street from general industrial to BG general commercial.
Second.
Do you have a question?
No.
Oh.
I'm
All right,
I'm rolling with you guys.
any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes. Okay. All right, so that is our last new item. So we've got reports from boards, commissioners, committees. So Lake Bellevue and Sugar River ad hoc. Gary.
We've met twice. We're gonna be meeting, just so everybody knows, are gonna be meeting on the first and third Mondays of the month at 5 o'clock in June, July, and August, for sure. So if you haven't already, there is a survey out it's on the village Facebook, it's been out there. It's not on the website, right? It's on the Facebook page. So there were the 12 items that the village board had previously come up with that were vetted by the trustees for the bequeathment, and they said that was fine. So what we did is Gabe created a survey that allows people to go and rank those 12 items from 1 to 12, what they would prefer the order to be. So I would encourage everybody to go out and do that. We have had 58 responses to that. We reviewed it tonight. We're gonna meet again on the 2nd of June, and something will go out on the water bills and the utility bills. Encourage people to take that. But right now, I would say the first 58 people are pretty much in alignment with, I think, what the village board talked about. The first item on the list is removing invasive species and all that kind of stuff. So we met tonight. Jasmine Wyatt, who is one of the committee members and is with the Upper Sugar River Watershed Association. She's going to get some information, and Gabe and the gang are going to start working on a couple of the other items that we talked about tonight. And again, the committee is good through September 1st. So hopefully first meeting in September, we'll be able to provide at least a draft of a strategic plan and a, implementation and everything at that. So a couple of good meetings so far. So again, I would encourage everybody to take that survey.
Parks, Rec, Forestry.
All the fun stuff. So we discussed a lot of things. We talked about new parks out on the west side. discuss the phases with those. The fun thing was Sugar River Park and what we are hoping to do with that. We came up with, I think, some really good ideas and some really nice layouts for not only the main part of Sugar River Park, but the land that was donated. We have kind of a conceptual idea of what we'd like to do with that as well.
In community park.
And community park. And I will say that I made an executive decision that's gonna be very unpopular about community park, but we'll see.
So the next phase is the youth sports. Already saw this once. The Public Parks Committee has made their recommendation. So they had two designs. They narrowed it down to one design. And now that one design is now going to the parks groups, special groups, next Wednesday. And then I think at the next parks meeting or one after, soon thereof, we will have a full public review of the signs. And then once that's done, Parks Committee will make their final recommendation. It'll come to you all and then we'll start budgeting.
So I'm guessing the final report will be more than just a diagram. There'll be some cost estimates.
Cost estimates, phasing, what's the highest priorities, all of that stuff. How to get it done.
How not to interfere with the existing buildings.
Police committee.
So we dealt with one Saturday, we did 4 interviews and made our recommendations to the chief for his interviews, and then it'll come back to the committee once he makes that, and then it'll come to the board.
Finance government.
We met last Monday. Had a whole lot of business items on there. The main thing is we started to review the ordinances that Ian worked on. So we have started the ordinance recodification process, and when we get to a point, we can explain that a little more later, but we had about 100 pages of ordinance to review, I think, at the last meeting. So and that will continue, and all the standing committees can look forward to getting your versions of that apply to your committee to review at some point down the road. So we talked budget calendar, and we're just starting that process. So.
Bundle of joy.
Yes.
So planning commission meeting was a busy one. Talked about conditional use permit for 511 West Pearl Street, which is the Alliant Energy substation. They're expanding that. Conditional use permit application for 807 River Street, which is part of the cleaning up of the beer garden process, so that we don't have to do it every year, correct? And then we talked about rezoning application for 109 South Park Street.
Which you referred to.
Yeah.
Yep, it's dead. And then site plan application was talked about for 109 South Park Street again, kind of the concepts they had presented. That's continuing to move forward. And then we talked about the Badger Trails. I guess we're calling it that, right?
Trails, yeah.
Development with the way it was potentially going to be zoned. That was a lot of public concern on that with traffic counts and
It's presented only high
properties.
density.
Yeah.
And then the plan commission asked for low, medium, and high density to be put into that. I had a meeting with them after plan commission, and we decided to put a 20-foot easement or border around the entire property, which will now be a trail system for the village, grass trail. And then it'll be low density on the bottom, medium density on the sides, and then high density in the middle. So it'll probably cut about 40 houses
The bottom is south.
south. I think it's a much better
That whole proposal is going to come in front of planning next month.
next year in the June meeting.
So,
We polled our neighbors and there's still some discussion going on. It was a step in the right direction, but it's not a done deal. We're not in charge. The collective group is. You know, we'll come back and discuss it. We would really like to meet with Petrie all by ourselves. Tell them we don't bite.
I think one of the things that's gonna be a challenge is that, you know, our border is just a little bit different in nature. What we're trying to do there is different from the other peripheral things. So I agree. It's definitely a step in the right direction.
We really
But
want to
there,
help him do the right thing.
and there's some complexities to it that I think, you know, it would be helpful to share with you guys and with the developer directly. But, you know, there's time for that in the next, between now and the June meeting.
Comes down to it, we just want just same thing you all want, to do the right thing. Belleville's gonna grow. We want it to grow, something that we can all be proud of. And if Josh is on board with that, we won't have any trouble. Just wanna have it back and forth. That's all.
hopefully, and certainly, I assume maybe he'll be at the next meeting. So,
Well, that's kind of hard on him, that, because,
yeah, right.
I mean, you know.
Yeah.
But, you know, we'd like to talk to him personally. We've reached out and we'll do it again.
Yeah.
Gabe tried to poke something up
Yeah.
once and didn't work, but
With another shot.
After that meeting, you might get more traction now.
yeah.
Yeah, don't
We
give
don't
up.
want to force him into a corner. We're not.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So that was those were the highlights. So,
Now we're going home.
library board.
Michigan's Park starts in June.
Yes.
Do you know what day?
They just posted something about it today on Facebook. The whole schedule is out on Facebook today. Yeah. So I don't remember, but
2/3 is the first stage.
You're all invited to my front porch.
When does the Hop Garden open?
They haven't set a formal date in our, for us yet, so, but I think they want it at the end of May. It's the hope.
I talked to Tim at the planning commission meeting, and they had to make some changes to the beer garden area, so that will not be open as soon. But he's hoping to have the inside open for Memorial Day weekend here.
And I will have an easement.
It might be just drinks or whatever, but you know, he's doing his best to get it open.
I'll have the easement for you. We have to solidify the easement for the dam. So we've been working with them back and forth on just getting everything done on the legal description. So eventually I'll have an easement for you to.
News and announcements. So we've got Chalk Walk coming up.
Chalk coming up. If you want to be artistic, there's a online application form. You can buy a square right here on Main Street, enter the Chalk Walk competition, and then there'll be prizes, but I'm not in charge of procuring, so I don't know what they are. If you just want to have some fun, we're opening Library Park and the sidewalk in front of the library for kids to just draw. And I have a whole lot of chalk in this closet right here, so.
I'll be down.
Just pray, yeah, we're hoping for good weather that weekend. We'll have a little debut ceremony for the mural as well. And thank the sponsors and everybody that put work into that, but looking forward to it.
You mentioned music in the parks coming up.
What else? Some hours. 7th.
Pops and Bobbers. The Jazz in the Park is next week. So the high school jazz band and jazz choir will be in the park not this Wednesday, for the following Wednesday. And yeah, so.
Rain.
Oh,
Rain or shine. Gonna rain.
a lot of fun events. I think all of our special events are up on, that you guys have approved are up, except the ones tonight. are up on the village's website calendar, so you can take a look there for more information on any of those events that have gone through you guys.
And then I am also approved or in the process of approving the kayak agreements. The Hickman Sugar River. Since it's an automatic agreement, unless you guys have some major issue, I'm not bringing it back to you.
I thought it was to come back to us in time.
It's a rotating each year.
Something that I can tell you that's not happening, I was informed the other day, is there will not be a Wednesday night men's softball league this year.
What?
Yeah, I guess I don't know what the reasoning was, but. That's what I was told.
Really? So it's melting in hell. Hell's freezing over. Interesting. That's how many years?
Well, it's been going on as long as I can remember.
Any future agenda items?
Next, the June meeting is going to be your fire and EMS conversation. And then July's 7th meeting, I'm having University come in. It's in the strategic plan. They're the group that will help with some of the projects from UW-Madison. Some of the kind of like how UW-Platteville did some of their projects. And so the department heads have been working on what projects we would like them to work on. So they're going to present to you guys. That way you can either include it in the budget, and cost works and all that kind of stuff. So.
Reminder that that June 2nd meeting is at the library, not here. So I guess if you're going to have the ad hoc committee here at 5 and early enough to get yourself to the library by 6.
Just move the ad hoc over there then too, so. Forgot about that.
Where's the
What's
EMS
happening now?
fire meeting at?
We just, the library. I don't know about your meeting. The village board meeting is it?
EMS, so Fire and EMS Association is gonna be at the fire station on the 10th, because they want to show off the new lockers, which look very nice in there. So
I haven't seen it.
What did you just say about the ad hoc?
we're gonna have it over at the library because the village.
I also want to mention the alcohol renewals will be coming to the board the second or that third Monday in June.
Good.
So.
Great. With that, I would entertain a motion.
I mean,
Motion to adjourn.
second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? We are adjourned at 7:12.